So I will find here RTist 11.1, so you can see it runs on Eclipse 2026. You will also notice that there is a new icon here. So we took the opportunity in this release to refresh our product icon. It looks like this now. And in this new Eclipse, there are of course many improvements that come from the new Eclipse version. So let's look at some of them. So I think the one that you may notice already quickly here is that this field that used to be here in the toolbar, the quick access field, is gone. Now instead there is this magnifying glass, but the function is pretty much the same. So you just click there, and if you want to execute some command, you can just type its name, and you will find it that way instead of looking in menus. There is also a new command called Quick Search, which you can either invoke from here, or it's also present here in the search menu. Quick Search, Control-Alt-Shift-L is the default key binding. This one works pretty much like the old file search in Eclipse, but now it's incremental, so you can get the matches as you type. So for example, each time you type something here, you will find matches in all your workspace files, and it can be handy often to filter it to only look in some files like C++ files. And if you click on one of these matches, you can also watch the context of that match here in the bottom pane, and of course opening it will just open it in the editor area. So this is in a way quite similar to our fine named element that we have had for a long time, that maybe we can also refresh your mind about. So here you can also type something incrementally. It takes a little bit of time the first time you do it because it builds an index, but after that you can quickly go to a model element with a certain name in a very similar way to that quick search feature of Eclipse. There are also some new preferences that are worth pointing out. We can look at one that is important, that is here in general editors. There is a close editors automatically preference that by default is set, and the limit is 99. So it means that if you open editor number 100, the oldest one will be closed. So if you have the habit of having very many editors open, you should be aware that if you don't find the editors you're looking for, it's most likely because of this new preference. You can, of course, disable it to get the old behavior back, but it's quite good for performance reasons not to have a huge number of editors open. And you can even consider lowering this if you find it useful. There is another preference here in the general keys that also is new and worth mentioning. Actually, they are two. These two checkboxes at the bottom here. These are good for two scenarios. One is if you want to run a screen sharing presentation like I do now. Then if you click here, you will get pop-ups whenever you invoke a command through the keyboard. And the other checkbox can be good to mark if you want to learn what key bindings are associated with certain commands. So for example, now thanks to the second checkbox, I can invoke a command like this one, and I get here that this can be invoked by Control-Alt-F the next time. And if I type that keyboard shortcut, you see it also shows that that was the keyboard shortcut I pressed. Then there is a new feature called code minings for problem annotations. And to show that, we need an example with some errors. I think we can take this file here. As you know, before, all the problems were just highlighted with this red cross here, and you had to put your mouse over to see the actual problem, or go to the problems view where you could read about it. But now there is the option to get this error text inline in the code flow. This is called a code mining. And Yeah, I think you get used to it quite quickly, actually, to have this information inside the code. And it's also beneficial if you want to use quick fixes, because then you can right-click on these and you can invoke the quick fix directly without having to go to the problems view. And this is, if you don't like this behavior, you can turn it off. So there is a preference in the general editors section. I think it's text editors. Yes, here, show code minings for problem annotations. And you can set it either to none, or if you want to have it only for errors, or both errors and warnings, and maybe even information texts. And finally, let's look at one improvement that is related to debugging. So I will start a debug session of a C++ application that I have generated from RTist. And as I think you all know, a problem when you don't have all the files of your application in the workspace is that sometimes Eclipse can't find them. And you will then see this window popping up where it prompts you to give the path to this source. So it cannot find the source here for the main, because it's not debug compiling, and Eclipse doesn't know where these files are. But now there is a new view in the C++ debugger called Debug Sources. That is quite handy, because here you have the list of all files that went into this application when it was compiled with paths. So here you can, for example, find all the target RTS files. And for example, if you go to the main line where the main function is, yeah, you see there is a breakpoint here. And when we set breakpoints in these files, it's guaranteed that they will be bound. So that little checkbox will be there, because these files are known by the debugger. And then we can just resume the application, and now we are hitting the breakpoint and can start to debug. And of course, there can also be other files in addition to the target RTS that you have in your application that you don't maintain in Eclipse, and then it's equally handy for those files. So that was a little bit of the news in this version of Eclipse and CDT. However, there are many more, and if I can, here, if you look on our info center, this is the page for RTist 11.1, and here you can, for example, click this What's New presentation, and on the first few slides there are links to where you can read about all the news. So in this version there is Eclipse 4.16, which actually contains improvements for 4 quarterly Eclipse releases that you can read about here. And if you scroll a bit down, you will find similar for CDT. There are 3 new CDT releases with improvements. And for eGit, there are 4 links you can click to learn about all the various improvements in eGit 5.8. Okay, any questions about news in Eclipse?